Hey everybody, welcome back to UR Free TV. It is Wednesday, July 23rd, 2025. So glad to be back with you here on UR Free TV. I'll jump right in with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence, hatred, or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. So I'm so glad to be back with you here on Wednesday. The news is, very intense, kind of disturbing. So we're going to jump in there right now. But I just want to start by saying, of course, thank you to everyone supporting the channel. All of my subscribers, the people who support the channel, thank you for your donations, your prayers, your news tips, all of it, and the great positive comments. I so appreciate all of it. And so we're going to jump right in here. So today's one of those days where it's like, it's a roughie to do primarily here. And there's so many things, but of course, to do with the White House AI action plan that they've just done. And Trump just did a huge press, conference on the whole thing, signing 3 executive orders. And basically, this to me is one of those occasions where you kind of feel like you've walked over your own grave. I don't know if you've ever had one of those spiritual experiences, like a memory of the future, someplace you've gone or whatever, and just gotten a really bad feeling. And then later in life, you go to that same place and something bad does happen. I've had that happen. This feels like that. Okay. We know that the USA does have to deal with the world's this AI breakout that's coming, and that the USA does have to be dominant in it to not be overrun by totalitarianism, the CCP, all of it, the World Economic Forum, and their demands. And so Trump is getting ahead of that with massive amounts of trillions of dollars going in to create basically, a huge AI B system here in the USA. And so today he came out with America's AI action plan in DC. I'm going to talk about that now. But there's also a lot of really amazing things that have happened. And one I'll just put out there real quick, which is that RFK Jr. from HHS yesterday put out an incredible report, and I will link it below, of how HHS is going to revamp the entire U.S. organ transplant system and guidelines, and the way it's going in hospitals. He basically said that in their reports, they have uncovered a basic organ trafficking situation here in the USA. It's not news to any of us, but basically where hospitals that have contracts with organ transplant hospitals have had a grave disregard for the sanctity of human life, and basically this situation of basically people showing signs of life, showing possibility of recovery, being targeted for organ harvesting to sell their organs to transplant hospitals. And it's interesting, people I've talked to who are close in that industry, they say, hey, they love the motorcycle accidents, they love the drug overdoses, because they can declare a sort of brain dead situation and then just take the organs. Multiple states, I think Texas is one. I think there's other states where they've already opted out, where when you get your driver's license, if it used to be just, hey, you want to be an organ donor and you select yes or no. Now it's just the law in so many states where it's, no, you are an organ donor unless you specifically request it to be put on there that you are not an organ donor. So important there, especially with real ID, digital ID, everything coming. So RFK Jr. pointing this out and saying that they are going to revamp this whole system and end this practice of predatory organ harvesting in the USA is a great thing. It's amazing. It's depressing that it's happening, but it's happening, and it's been happening for decades. And so great to have HHS go ahead and confront that. And, I think there's AI involved even in that going forward. So that's for a later video. But let's dive in here And I will be talking about so much else besides the America's AI action plan as outlined by Trump. Not really. He didn't really outline it. He just came out and basically said, we're going to steal all your intellectual property. And that's just the way it is. It's what we need to do here in the USA for to become AI dominant in the world. And, it is kind of a, it's conjuring up, it's creating the beast system here in the USA. And it's very disturbing, but we will break it down here a little bit. He signed 3 executive orders, and I will link the America's AI Action Plan below so you can read for yourself. And this has the first one, the first executive order. Well, actually, I'm going to start with number 3, because number 3 is an executive order saying that AI models developed in the United States will be ideologically neutral, meaning no woke, no none of the DEI stuff, none of the woke stuff we've seen in all of the algorithms, etc., will be allowed in the creation of AI models and machine learning, etc. And that's kind of impossible, really, because of the companies involved here. When we're looking at OpenAI, we're looking at XAI, Anthropic, others. That it's almost in Google, of course, it's impossible really to have them totally be ideologically neutral. Okay, in the programmers putting all of our stolen information, which Trump basically said today, they're just going to steal all your intellectual property, everything online, every your artistry, your poetry, your novels, your videos, your everything you have. He just said we can't have them having to work out thousands and thousands of contracts, try hundreds of millions of contracts to compensate people for their intellectual property. That would be crazy. So they get to steal everything from you and feed it into the AI. And so we're supposed to be all psyched that it's not going to be woke. And to me, that executive order was just to give to the masses, don't worry, it won't be woke AI. Okay. What should be the first filter and the first barrier for AI to go through, especially with executive order number 2, which is to export American AI models across the world to dominate the world's use of AI, is that the first barrier and guideline of AI when it's processing anything should be the U.S. Constitution and the U.S. Our Bill of Rights, the Declaration of the Bill of Rights, which Trump has now hanging in the Oval Office for the first time in decades and decades. And yet, he just basically blatantly said today in his discussion there at the White House that no, your Declaration of Rights doesn't matter because your own private property is now not yours. It is to go into the AI that's going to feed it to create their model system. And so I guess that, what I just said, that wouldn't pass the first test, right? And so that's very disturbing, very disturbing. And so, yes, the second executive order was to promote export abroad of American AI models for USA to dominate AI usage across the world based on USA model. And of course, this is all Silicon Valley's AI, okay? And Trump praised Silicon Valley up and down and around the place. Just the geniuses. Trump even said, we shouldn't call it artificial intelligence. We should call it genius intelligence. I mean, full bore crazy town Trump, using his rhetoric and verbose language, wanting to call artificial intelligence genius intelligence. And that that it won't be genius once it becomes artificial super intelligence and just totally becomes cyber Satan and literally the beast system antichrist. But howsoever, when we look at this exporting of the models to everywhere across the world, that is, and I will at least say this, that of course we would want that AI that was built and trained in America with supposedly good values, I hate to even say it because it's just like because there's so much, it's built into all the medical systems, all of the mRNA technology, the Internet of Things, the intra-body nano network, the Internet of Bodies, the natural asset corporations, the Internet of Nature. All of this is all going to be rolling out here, and what's going to be rolling out in Executive Order Number 1 is the federal permitting for AI infrastructure to be fast-tracked for permitting AI data centers. And this has to do, of course, with using federal lands to allow these data centers to be built on federal lands, which means that they're making these corporate contracts with massive, uh, you know, trillionaire corporations, Google, Meta. Trump was praising them. He didn't praise XAI, which is interesting. Still seems to be a hitch in the giddy up there, but uh, basically, Meta and Google and all these other people, they're just amazing. All these corporations that have the rights of people, that they get to, basically they're going to use federal lands, federal ownership, and this federal lands are hugely controlled by the Department of Energy, have been forever. And that's, you get back into the Rothschild ownership of that, all of it, and hugely protected, like militarily protected. And so with Doug Burgum and Chris Wright there, Burgum, Department of Interior, Chris Wright, the Department of Energy. They're just Trump couldn't say enough how they're just hand in hand. They're such a great team. They're like the Wonder Twins, and so basically they're going to, the federal permitting is going to go on warp speed, but also there's going to be the accessing and using of federal land, so they don't even have to go through anything to do with the states where all of these are going to be, built. They can just stick them on federal lands, and this is not right. It's not okay, and it's very disturbing. In the background, we're hearing things about universal basic income being whispered, all this kind of stuff, instead of big fat checks for using all of our natural resources to build these corporations where you get a corptocracy that will lead to a digital, not just a digital surveillance and medical tyranny system, but also a digital currency system that was just came out with the Genius Act. Because with the Genius Act, when it says, the Anti-CBDC Surveillance Act and all of this, and as Trump just shot down again, basically, yes, we fought so hard to get the AI moratorium out of the big beautiful bill. They're sticking it in the NDAA, but Trump just basically, in executive order, just made it so already again, where they're going to be allowed to steal everything of intellectual property. And so it's just very disturbing. I'm very disturbed, very disappointed, and well, disappointed is just like it's like no, just a big giant no, and yet here we are. And so when we look at this federal permitting for AI infrastructure, fast tracking for data centers, Trump is always going on, oh, energy, energy, energy. We're going to have so much energy. We'll be, we have the most energy in the world and all of this, while Israel's killing everybody all around them just to try to access those massive, natural gas, um, uh, the fields that they're trying to get a hold of. But basically, what I'm trying to say here is that as he goes on and on about energy and the need to, of course, create energy, and I think he's saying that, well, Goldman Sachs is saying that AI will require 250% more energy than the U.S. already makes, and it was hobbled under Biden. But the big thing there that's not being talked about is water. Okay, as you see in your blue states, Oregon one, multiple other states, that they want a permit for you to even like inner tube on the rivers or have a kayak on the river. You can't collect your rainwater. You can't have a tiny pond on your property to feed animals. Anything, basically water, right? And they're already on about water, and water is the big new industry. Well, water, when it comes to AI data centers, is massive. I think it's like one chat GBT search takes like millions of gallons of water. Like, it is so insanely huge, the amount of water. And when we look at, I mean, with XAI, I think it is at Alabama or Mississippi, but a huge XAI plant that was built there in the South is complaining massively of huge pollution problems. A lot of this to do with water, and this is the situation, okay, where you're using massive amounts of water, and they've already, trying to, just limit human use of water, and this has nothing to do with what's really prime water, where there's tons of water, okay, that the earth creates. The earth creates. It's not just the rain coming down. The earth creates water that comes up through these beautiful springs and these aquifers underneath the earth. And that's the pure, beautiful, gorgeous, pure water that humans should be drinking, and that, just like Gaddafi wanted to do there in Libya before they killed him, HRC, he wanted to create prime water aquifers for all of the people there in Libya, as well as staying off the central bank system, et cetera. Well, this is a situation the US people and people across the world should have access to prime water from these aquifers from deep in the earth that regenerates itself, okay, as the planet is meant and created by God to be, where it regenerates itself. And instead, what's going to happen here is the ongoing, continual weather weaponization. Okay, I listened to Dane Wigington yesterday, and he was talking about how the rivers, what the hydrosphere, the rivers that are, in the lower atmosphere that are used in the weather weapons to do these mass floods. We've had, he said something like, I don't know, 36 thousand-year floods in the USA just this summer. That is totally fake, and of course controlled by the EMF frequencies, the Doppler radar, the Harper Ray system, and et cetera, NexRad, to dump trillions and trillions of gallons on to create something like what happened in Texas a couple of weeks ago. This is, we're looking at what will be needed for the AI centers. Tons, massive amounts of water. Okay. And the energy is one thing, but the water usage is so massive. And where that water is going to come from and how it's going to, deplete our rights to water, human right of water, our natural, the natural law, natural rights to water is a huge thing. And so this is going to be huge coming forward, and I wanted to let you know about it. So to me, this whole thing is, while I know it's inevitable that this AI rollout is coming, and yes, would want the US as the best country as far as rights go, to be controlling and leading this thing, it's still awful in what it means for the capture through AI of everything, not the least of which is our intellectual property and our human biological data. Okay, the data of all of our things, whether it is our actual physical bodies, our financial data, our everything we do online, everything. It's not just, oh, we're going to take your article that you wrote or this book that you posted online. It's everything you do online, okay, going to the AI. And Trump basically just put it out there today that, yes, this can't stand where, people are going to insist that they get paid for their data. Well, why not? Because that's the currency of the day, and people should get paid for their data. If this is the new economy based on AI, then people should get paid for the data that is funding it. that is fueling it, that is making it possible. So I'll leave that there for now. We know they're putting out there, this is the big fight versus China. China's totalitarian AI, even though Google built it, right, under Eric Schmidt, built the whole Dragonfly Eye, built everything, their biometric system, the social credit score system. And that's what I was saying before through the Genius Act, is that because the corporations will run the the stablecoin system. Okay, the people who own the stable coins, right? They can censor you. U.S. government can't censor you, but they can record and create a social credit score system under stablecoin, which is becoming just a new leverage system to leverage the fiat dollar. And instead of free crypto that is protected for anonymity and your chain of custody, that's all gone in the Genius Act. And so while we look at this, the get around here through things like the Genius Act and the use of worldwide stablecoin to prop up the U.S. dollar is that just like the government under Biden and Obama, et cetera, couldn't specifically, supposedly censor you, they can lean on and tell through CISA and all their other NSA, in the full-on censorship commission they had there at the White House, they can lean on Facebook, Meta, Google, everybody used to what was Twitter, to censor you. They could tell them to censor you. And so when we look at stablecoin, whereas the U.S. government is saying, "Oh, we won't have a CBDC, one control grid here. We won't have a digital ID currency." But there's still a digital currency going to be out there. And as they attract everybody and everybody to get into it with the stablecoin, they can then lean on the corporations, okay, who are already creating the social credit score system. We saw, what was it the other day? What did I see? It was, I think it was Delta Airlines came out and said that they are going to use AI to determine ticket prices based on the collected data of the person purchasing the ticket. Okay, so that's it right there in a nutshell. Okay, so they'll use AI to go in and they're just paying to to tranche all your data, to show who you are when you're going in and trying to buy a ticket, and they will base your prices on who you are, meaning how much you make, etc., to how they establish your ticket prices for airlines at Delta. We also have with Hewlett Packard that came out like last week. Hewlett Packard is now selling their printers where they're going to have subscriptions so that you buy the printer, okay, and you think you bought it, you're good, just hook it up to your Wi-Fi, good to go. No, in order to use the printer, you have to then also purchase a subscription plan that you pay monthly to be able to use the printer and print out your whatever. And so this is what I'm saying. Okay, with the corporations then collect your data. So Hewlett Packard, hey, you don't pass some AI system, then you won't be able to print your material. This is just awful. Okay, just awful. So this is where we're headed, and yeah, I'll leave that there. We'll get more into it, of course, as the week goes on. But it's very disturbing about the the use of federal lands as they go out with their Make America Beautiful again commission. Okay, that has the DOD in there on the commission, Department of Defense, and they're trying to seriously get rid of Pete Hegseth right now. That's huge ongoing as the NDAA is rolling out with very curious and strange things there. But the Skynet USA possibility and the B system rollout is very, very disturbing and important for us to just be on top of, right? Definitely a walking over our grave situation here, for the cyber Satan and the Antichrist. So I will jump into this Pete Hegseth thing for a minute. There's a total witch hunt out against getting him off as SecDef, Secretary of Defense, and he has basically been pushing um, to redirect the military-industrial complex, the neocons, and they're really just globalist cons at this point. There's no left or right there. To basically, to say we have to pivot towards China, we have to stop funding all this NATO stuff, and Trump gloriously said today that he was, NATO's going to pay 100% for those weapons that they're going to distribute to Ukraine. Okay, I mean, it's just like I feel like I'm in a altered universe where all of a sudden Trump's full AI, full mark of the beast, and full let's give weapons to Ukraine to bomb Russia. It's very disturbing. But Pete Hegseth has been thwarting that. He was the one who held back sending weapons to Ukraine, and he has been trying hugely to pivot, which was the initial cause here, initial situation. Him and Parnell, his assistant secretary of defense, and Colby, to pivot away towards a basically, a continental defense where we be focused more in on what is over here in this hemisphere. That's why the focus on the Arctic, the focus on things like Greenland as a strategic important base. What's going on in Panama. This sort of situation to protect the United States on a hemispheric basis and pull out of this EU quagmire of Trotskyite, their huge, massive intention to create World War III. And we have people like Martin Armstrong, who is amazing. Martin Armstrong, ArmstrongEconomics.com. He's been doing basically, speaking of AI, but before there was AI, he was able to program his computer, and he's like a hedge fund guy, but he was able to program the computer to do predictive program, kind of like Cliff High, the woo of Cliff High. But he was doing it as a hedge fund guy, and he was able to predict multiple crises, wars, global catastrophes, all this stuff. And he has been coming out trying to warn everybody up and down that everything he's seeing in his computer modeling to do with his hedge fund predictions, and he's been huge involved in everything like to do with the fall of the Soviet Union, just everything from way back. Okay. And he's saying, everything I'm seeing points towards nuclear war. Okay. It doesn't end. It doesn't shift. All of the prediction programming here with the computer is nuclear war. He said it might be tactical nukes, it might be whatever, but he said, if this thing doesn't end with Trump pulling out of NATO and pulling out of this support of NATO's and this Trotskyite cabal's situation to create World War III, it's going to happen. It's happening. And he said he hasn't seen a model that he has been programming that doesn't come out with this same situation of nuclear war and World War III. So just saying there. And Pete Hegseth has been fighting against that, trying to pull the USA, which had been supposedly Trump's, what he was going to do, pull us out of Ukraine, pull us out of NATO domination of everything, and the attack on Russia, who is still, again, with their, massive army going in there outside of Kursk and pushing forward here. Well, we're seeing that in the EU, they're talking about having 250,000 troops out of NATO, okay, go to Ukraine. And it's just ridiculous. And nobody cares, nobody over here in the USA, I'm just saying, should care about what's going on in Ukraine with Russia. To me, obviously, they created, and this comes out with Tulsi Gabbard with her amazing, again, reveals today on the treasonous conspiracy of Barack Obama and the heads of intelligence with Crossfire Hurricane and what happened with the presidency in 2016 of Trump to turn the American people against Russia anew. Okay, just a new, Russia is evil scenario that they ginned up and were able to then control Trump's ability to effectively communicate with Russia, and of course then roll out, as they had already done, the Ukraine coup, and roll out what then became the war. And then in Biden's stolen presidency of 2020, this is why Gabbard's incredible expose on the direction of the creation of the false reports by Barack Obama, uh, executed by Brennan, Clapper, and Comey, who should be arrested immediately for their treasonous activity. Like it's even Anna Paulina Luna came out and said they should be arrested immediately. She cited, I think it's code 1001 under section 3, where basically she said she's calling um, for their intelligence community assessment lies, that basically that they violated that code and should be arrested. That's a violation of falsifying documents. That is it falls under sedition, and it doesn't have to do with statute of limitations. This is a military style situation that's representative of Anna Paulina Luna. But before I go too far on what's going on there with Gabbard, Pete Hegseth, they're attacking him with another one of these anonymous letters like they did with Trump's Epstein thing last week. And of course, we did have the Rosenberg down there in Florida deny the release, the declassifying or the release of Epstein's documents from Florida. I'll get into that in a second. She's a real a real deep stater, definitely straight up connected with SCOTUS, with Chief Justice Roberts. We'll get into Rosenberg in a moment, but with Pete Hegseth, they're trying to get him on some more salacious material, not producing a letter saying, "Oh, we have huge concerns," putting this out through the Daily Mail, etc., and going after him hugely. While in the NDAA that they're passing, trying to pass now the House is gone. The House of Representatives is leaving the building tomorrow. Won't be back until after Labor Day. So anything good that they could possibly do won't be happening while the Senate is staying in, supposedly to confirm Trump's picks, right? His nominees. But it sounds to me more like as Thune was a McConnellite, okay? Mitch McConnell, Thune is one of his acolytes. It sounds more to me like the Senate is staying in to basically thwart Trump being able to do recess appointments, okay? Because they're slow walking everything. They've had all this time. There's over 100 plus, 120 plus nominees that they have not confirmed. And McConnell, what did he do during Trump's first term? Is he refused to ever take a recess. Doesn't mean they did anything, okay, during that time. And we'll see if the Senate does anything here under Thune. They're not taking a recess. Trump said, I asked them not to recess, etc. But if they did recess, and this is what Senator Ron Johnson out of Arizona, now running for governor, I think, he's basically saying, how about we take the recess so you can actually do your recess appointments and then get people in there for a year to get to execute your, everything you need to do. All these judges, these U.S. attorneys, hugely important to do with the lawfare and everything else. And it's why we want a guy like Nate Morris, who's running to take up Mitch McConnell's seat against other McConnell acolytes. Let's hope that Nate Morris gets in there to take out the garbage. He's like a garbage guy. He created a garbage industry there out of Kentucky, and and he was the one that actually, it's from him I learned, from Nate Morris, that it is Bill Gates that owns the most stocks and interests in garbage in the USA. Isn't that interesting? Very interesting. Okay. So anyway, with Hegseth, back to the NDAA, one of the reasons here they're trying to get rid of him in this RENPAC, um, military exercises that has to do with the Navy, and the biggest most important thing, because our Navy is being hugely um, just ignored. Okay, well, we need tons and tons and tons more ships, and it's very slow going. And there's still this focus on the Army when we need Air Force and Navy equipment and ships, etc. Well, the NDAA in this RENPAC exercises, they want to these operations. Okay, they in an 18-9 vote, and they are allowing. Okay, and this is I'll link it below, but it is basically where they want to allow the CCP to participate in these exercises that are literally the USA's exercises of the Navy in the Pacific to be able to combat China, okay, combat the CCP and their massive naval force. This is insane. So this has to do with Japan, South Korea, Philippines, all of whom, Japan and Philippines, all of whom Trump has met with recently, and the the passing of the trade agreement with Japan, etc. And this all has to do with the defense of Taiwan. And so, very interesting that they're going after real heavy on Hegseth now, who is trying to fight, trying to have the U.S. pivot towards the reality that our number one threat navally is China. And of course, you could throw Russia in there, but Russia continues to be consistently and constantly stayed in their response to all attacks against them. Okay, besides what they're doing in Ukraine. And yeah, okay. So I'm going to just mention here as well with Alina Habba in New Jersey. I mentioned this in my last video, where they were the district court judges under Hakeem Jeffries' direction ousted. They got away with ousting Alina Habba, who was a Trump attorney, very effective, very smart, outspoken, incredible attorney. She was in as the interim U.S. attorney in New Jersey. And so Hakeem Jeffries, because she had built a case against the New Jersey representative who went on that ICE protest that she ended up getting in a scuffle with ICE, where she put charges against her. Well, Hakeem Jeffries went after her and basically said, we're going to oust you. And the 17 district judges actually did oust her. And you had Pam Bondi come in, and this is very interesting. She came in and said, no, you've done it too early. She still had like 4 or 5 days. I think her term would end on Friday with a 120-day interim that you get as an interim U.S. attorney. And basically, they were going to put in their first assistant, this woman who's a stooge for the Democrats, the first assistant to the U.S. attorney, who was a career bureaucrat there. And so what Pam Bondi has come in is she's firing that woman, the first assistant, and she's going to put Alina Habba in as the first assistant, and then will become the U.S. attorney nominee to basically wait for her confirmation. So very interesting there. We'd like to see more of that from Bondi, plus, of course, much more. And when we look at what's going on with Tulsi Gabbard, who is pushing hard on the release of the Clinton emails, the Hillary Clinton emails, showing everything to do with her health concerns, with her huge tranquilizer use, how she has all these heart problems, diabetes, all this stuff, and putting that out there is great, but and just coming out with more documents to show how everything ordered for Crossfire Hurricane came out of Barack Obama, and very well done. People like John Solomon are saying, hey, this is a RICO case because it has a conspiracy across agencies. This is it's classic RICO, and that there should be a federal strike force that should come out to basically go against these people. They should be pursued the same as a drug cartel or a mafia in this conspiracy of treason and seditious overthrow of the government. And so, and it plays, all through 2016 to 2024, how this went from one year to the next, whether it is the impeachments, that this coup was a floating coup attempt that has gone really till through the end of the last election. And so that would be fantastic. And Gabbard's fighting hard. She's out there. She keeps releasing more documents, and this is a great thing. Okay, to uncover treason and sedition by Obama et al. And to push for their prosecution. In the White House briefing today, she basically said that the House Intelligence Committee Oversight Report showed that the intelligence community assessment was a full lie, that Brennan overruled senior CIA officers and published bogus assessments of Putin meddling in the 2016 election, and that that Russia had no bias of Trump or Hillary, that Brennan knew the Steele dossier was fabricated, made up for Oppo research, paid for, Fusion GPS, Hillary Clinton's campaign. And she basically says the implications of this are far-reaching for our democratic republic. The findings show an ongoing coup that lasted for 4 years during President Trump's first term, and that she's, of course, done criminal referrals to the DOJ. And we'll see what comes of that because, of course, then we're hit with the DOJ. And so I'm going to scooch over from there to Robin Rosenberg and denying the release of the unsealing of the Epstein documents from Florida. And Robin Rosenberg, she's a Jewish judge from Florida, from the Palm Beach area. And she's a Barack Obama appointee, and she's strangely used to be a vice president at Slim Fast, as well as their chief counsel, Slim Fast Foods, like the diet drinks or whatever. And interestingly, in April of this year, she was appointed by SCOTUS John Roberts, Chief Justice, as the director of the Federal Judicial Center. Okay, and that's huge. The Federal Judicial Center. This ties into the Inn of Courts that I've been talking about on this channel for a while. And that ties into the Pilgrim Society and the bar in England and the UK and the City of London, and the control by the City of London and MI6 and the Crown, but especially the Pilgrim Society in their complete running of the council here in the USA, in the deep state, the creation of the Senior Executive Council in 1979 under Jimmy Carter. The whole deep state creation, reaches back to the Pilgrim Society, and they run this whole Inn of Courts. And we get back to Robin Rosenberg, and she is, of course, appointed by John Roberts just in April as the director of the Federal Judicial Center. And she's the one denying the unsealing of the Epstein documents in Florida. So this is all very interesting and squirrely. And we also have, which I'll round out this video with here tonight, is we have the curious death, and yes, he was 80, but Trump is 79, Roy Black, who was the former Epstein lawyer who secured the 2008 plea deal with Alex Acosta, the U.S. attorney, who Trump wanted to put in as Department of Labor secretary in his first term, who said it's been out there on the internet forever that Epstein is a CIA asset. That's why they gave him the plea deal that they didn't expose to the actual plaintiffs. okay, all the girls that were abused and assaulted by Epstein, where he gets this sweet deal of just, where he, has a day, he wears an ankle bracelet and he goes to sleep at this cushy little county jail at night, going back to his home every day. In 2008, well, Roy Black was the one who got that deal with Alex Acosta, and he just happened to die last week, just out of nowhere. No, he had a long illness, they say, but dies at 80. And he is the same guy, Roy Black, who got the acquittal for the 1991 rape trial to do with William Kennedy Smith. If you remember JFK's nephew, William Kennedy Smith, there was a whole connection here with the Bushes. William Kennedy Smith accused of rape way back in 1991. I remember it clearly, but for a lot of you, that's probably like, what? Yeah, he got the acquittal for him, and total connections here with the Bushes. And of course, we know that the Bushes on the west coast of Florida have a huge compound where so much connected to 9/11 was run very closely connected to that Bush compound there in central West Florida on the coast. And he also, Roy Black, in 2015, he blocked the release of the Epstein emails and letters being released then in 2015 when they were requested. He blocked the release of those emails and letters of Epstein. And so it's all very interesting because we have all these blacks, okay, this Jewish, the Jewish black contingent, and we have Leon Black, and I'm trying to find if there's a relations between any of these, but Leon Black is the one who financed Epstein Island, okay, Little Saint Thomas, the pedo island. Leon Black gave, through massive money laundering that's come out, $170 million to Epstein and the funding of the island and the ongoing things that were going on there. He at the time was CEO of Apollo Global Management, okay, Apollo Global Management, which has about $500 billion in assets. His past goes back to Lehman Brothers, the same as where Epstein got his job, amazingly, because he's this math whiz who never went to college. He dropped out and then got the job at the Dalton School with Donald Barr, etc. And we're hearing, of course, that now Todd Blanche, the assistant AG under Bondi, is going to go and interview Ghislaine Maxwell in the prison there in Florida and meet with her to what? They already subpoenaed her from the House Oversight Committee to whenever they come back and actually do some work again 6 weeks from now, that she, subpoena her and get her testimony, right? But no, Todd Blanche is going to go. And of course, Bill Barr, Donald Barr's son, Donald Barr, OSS CIA, who ran the Dalton School, hired Epstein, and then Bill Barr, the CIA director under Trump first term, and he was AG under Trump first term. Before that, he was CIA director, and then before that, he was AG for George H.W. Bush. His dad, Donald, of course, hired Epstein at the Dalton School, the elite school where so many New York Democrats send their children. And Epstein worked at Lehman Brothers, which is where Leon Black also worked. His net worth now seems to be about $15 billion. And he's again, Apollo Global Management. And I've talked about that company many times on this channel, and maybe this week I can get some more into it. And then we have Cofer Black, right? We have Cofer Black, again, CIA under George H.W. Bush. He was the director of operations for the CIA, and he ends up being on the board of Burisma as the controller of Hunter Biden. He's his controller at Burisma, okay, sent in with Joe and to manage all of the money laundering. And this gets into, Franklin Templeton investments that had everything to do with Barack Obama. Natalie Jaresko, who became the treasurer. She was a U.S. citizen but had Ukrainian roots, so she became a Ukrainian citizen. They put her in as the head of treasury in Ukraine after they orchestrated the coup. And then we have Franklin Templeton Investments and the whole national bank there in Ukraine, and Cofer Black, okay, who all of his history is before the CIA is totally connected to hedge funds and money and all of this. It's kind of like James Comey with the HSBC bank, where he was running so much intelligence connected funds through HSBC. Okay, same thing, same people, same situation. So I'm going to leave it there. There's a lot more always to get to, but I think we'll be leaving it there today. It is intense times. It is intense times, and we're staying armored by God is what we're staying, and we know that God is our anchor and also our savior, and what keeps us. I always keep myself connected to God in heaven, and rooted down into this world that God chose to put us in. And so stay rooted, stay prayerful, and just know that our heart resonance, our ability to pray, call on your full armor. We're all here to, chosen at this time to be here. This is important. We are the ones upon whom the future relies. So, spend a lot of time there in your prayers and your two chairs, you in one chair, God in the other, like Bob Bodine says, and just ask for what your role is. Okay, right now as we confront this massive world fight and what seems to be going really squirrely right now. Um, a lot of this has been in the works and coming towards us, and now it's here. And so I'll do as much as I can to give you as much news about it as we go forward. But take out your sword, in your God's armor, and get ready to, be there for the Prince of Peace. Be a warrior for the Prince of Peace, and speak the truth, and stay centered in your heart resonance. So I will be back with you tomorrow. If you found something helpful in this video and you want to support the channel, it sure would be fantastic. Really would. So I thank you in advance for that. And of course, I mentioned my fantastic sponsor. I think I'll be having an interview soon. Get my good friend Patty back on here to talk about c60evote.com /YAFTV. This is the incredible miracle molecule. Use the code YAFTV for 10% off. Speaking of all of this, in the EMFs and the, just if we live in Skynet, you might want some EMF protection for the radiation. And this is what is proven to fight against damage from radiation to your mitochondria, your DNA, and your cells. Cellular health is everything. It's the root. Cellular dysfunction is the root of all of the diseases, and the chronic diseases especially. I want to get into tomorrow a new report that came out about chemotherapy causing, of course, metastases. No, no surprise there. But the big C clinics buy up C60 Evo by the caseload. It is amazing. Incredible against inflammation. Incredible for cleaning out your mitochondria, regulating your cells. Helping the die off the bad cells. And c60evo.com /YAFTV. Use the code YFTV for 10% off. And if you have supported the channel ever, you get 15% off with a new code and link sent to you. And I give away 2 bottles every month to random people selected. And I love to be able to do that. These are the capsules, the olive oil, which is the highest potency. And I love the capsules because I just find them so easy. I can grab a few, keep them in my pocket. But they have the liquids. This is the MCT oil, the incredible MCT coconut oil, all organic, all incredibly made in America at the best lab in Houston, Texas. Literally the lab where they generated the ESS60 that was used in all of the studies. And they're paying out of their pockets to do more studies now. And there's going to be a lot more cool news coming out that hopefully with HHS Secretary RFK Jr., we'll be able to get carbon-60, ESS60, purest form, out to more people with less regulation. If you're going to deregulate everything for AI, Trump, how about you deregulate our natural health industry and let people heal people, okay? Instead of creating the framework for mRNA, Internet of Bodies, and intra-body nano network. So thanks so much for watching. You are free. Keep your spirits up. Keep your focus, keen, and know that God is with you. I will see you tomorrow. You are free.